When it comes to color correcting images, you can either use the auto adjustments that are available to you inside of GIMP and hope for the best, or you can use one of the manual tools like levels and curves and really dial in the specifics of your color correction. And that's what we're going to be doing in this movie, how to use the levels command to enhance the tonal values inside of an image and make it look a little bit better. So in this case, this image is a little underexposed and a little flat. So what I want to do is sort of boost that a little bit and bump up the contrast. And I'm going to use the levels command in order to do that. If you want to go up to the tools menu and go down to color tools, you can bring up levels. And inside of the levels dialog box, you have a lot of different controls available to you. And so if you had any presets available, they would be listed here. I don't. You can always save levels adjustments that you make inside of here as a favorite, but as each image is different, I don't see that as being a necessary thing that you're going to have to do or even want to do. In this case, though, you can also choose the value of the channel that you're working on, either red, green, or blue, or you can work on all of them at one time. And you can also reset the channel to its default. You get a big display of your histogram here, as well as controls for your shadow, midtone, and highlight controls. We'll talk about those in a minute. You can also control your output levels. As you can see, dragging this to the right sort of lightens up the image, and dragging this to the left darkens the image. You also have the auto levels command, which we discussed in a previous movie, and then you have your eyedropper controls right down here at the bottom. The eyedropper controls allow you to set your black point, your gray point, and your white point. If you were to select the white point and then go out in your image and try to find an area that you perceive to be white, you click on that, you might be surprised at exactly what happens there, so you got to be careful with those. And let's reset that back to normal just by clicking the reset button. The biggest area that you need to worry about here is the input levels right here. And so basically what these allow you to do is take these sliders and adjust either the black point, the gray point, or the highlight point, or the white point of the image. And so what you want to do here is just for this image, I want to increase the contrast a little bit. So I'm going to darken the shadows just a little. Maybe something like 15 would work. I also want to make the highlights pop a little more. So we're going to kind of move that to the left, maybe something to like 230. And then we can adjust the midpoint. If I think it's too light, I don't think so. I think it needs to be a little brighter than that. And maybe that even makes it a little bit easier for me to adjust the shadows, something to about 20. And this is kind of like a game that you're playing right here. Game of tug of war with the sliders, trying to decide what exactly looks best. The darker actually works well. And so there we have 21, 0.98. I might actually take that back up to just 1, and then 232. And so basically what I've done here is I've said, okay, anything that was at, basically you're dealing with levels of gray across here, right? At the very far left, you're dealing with complete black. At the very far right, you're dealing with complete white. And so what I've basically said is, because black is 0 and white is 255 when you're talking about shades of gray. And so what I've said is, okay, everything that is from 21, because you're dividing this up into 255 shades of gray, so everything from 21 over to 0, I want all that to just be black. Everything from 232 all the way up into 255, I want that to be white. So you're brightening up the highlights, you're darkening up the shadows. And then this one is just kind of in the middle where you're saying, okay, the gamma value or how bright or how light it is determined here. So you can adjust that accordingly. So the higher this goes, the brighter the image. The lower it goes, the darker the image. And so I'm pretty happy with these results, 21, 1, and 232. If I hit OK and then show you here's before, sort of muddy, light, no contrast, and here's after. A quick levels adjustment. Now, the one thing that you don't get with levels is a fine level of control over individual values of color. Whereas in something like curves, you actually have a massive amount of control over the entire histogram. Here inside of levels, you get to control 3 points, a black, a white, and a gray point. That's it. That's all you get. And that's what you just saw me adjust right there in that dialog box. I adjusted the black point, I adjusted the white point, then I adjusted the midpoint. And once I did that, I was able to get a decent fix on this image, but it's not exactly where I need it to go. I'm losing detail down here in his shorts, also some shadow detail right here. Definitely clipping out some highlights in the water as it's crashing over. And so that's one of the main points that I have against levels is the fact that it causes some clipping issues because you are actually telling this to essentially clip out parts of your image in order to increase or decrease the contrast, and that's not something you want to do. We want images to look really good, yet still maintain all of the level of detail that they need, and unfortunately with levels, that's very hard to maintain. So this is good for quick adjustments with a decent level of control. It certainly gives you more control than an auto adjustment, but it's by no means as complex as something, say, like curves. And so that's something we're going to dive into in a later movie, is how to gain even more control over the tonality of your images using something like curves. So hopefully by now you have a better understanding of what the levels command is and how it works, how you can adjust all of the different tonal values inside of your image to make it the best composition possible.